Hi, I'm Danny and these are my Diecast Disasters. In this video I'm going to be restoring and customizing what one could say is one of the greatest American race cars of all time, the Shelby Cobra Daytona. It was custom built in the mid-60s to take on the Ferrari 250 GTO in the GT Class World Championships. Hot Wheels have been producing this version from 2007. Let's take a closer look at it off of the turntable. A lot of the paint's missing there. The windscreen's not in too bad condition, it's a little bit scuffed. Those wheels are fairly scuffed and worn as well. And the chassis is also a bit scuffed and play worn. So definitely a good candidate for a tidy up. I'll begin by taking the car apart. So there's two posts I have to drill out. And then I can take the base off. And then I'll take out the interior and the windscreen. So there's the body casting. Now I can take that and strip the paint off it with some poly stripper. Here it is after paint stripping. 99% of the paint's all gone off of there. I'll give it a clean up with a wire brush on my rotary tool and get rid of that oxidation and any of the scraps of paint that are left. And here it is after a good clean up with the wire brush. It's looking a lot shinier. No paint left on that. Now the main thing I dislike about this casting is those huge big rear wheel arches. I'm also going to be putting slightly smaller wheels in the back. So to fill them in a little bit, I've started out with some styrene sheet. I've glued it in there. Now I'm starting to carve it down. Here it is after a bit more sanding and filing, and I also used a little bit of putty to fill any gaps between the body of the car and the styrene. So here it is, I've hit it with a light coat of grey primer just so I can see where I'm up to. And now I'll keep sanding, and I also file in some panel lines. A little bit more grey primer, it's not looking too bad. So that's lowered those wheel arches a little bit. I think that looks a lot better. Next I give it a coat of black primer. And I'm going to be painting my Daytona Coupe in the original metallic blue style. And I'm using Vallejo Premium Metallic Blue here. And here it is after a couple of coats of the blue paint. I start painting in a few details, some chrome and some black paint here. And I chose to use some strips of white decal paper to put the pinstripes on this car. It wasn't easy. I don't know if it would have been easier to just mask off and paint the lines on. Anyway, there they are. Moving on to the interior. In the interior, these were basically black. So I'm just going to leave this one black and paint in a couple of little details. Just the steering wheel there and the spare tyre around the gear stick. Onto the base now. I'm going to get rid of those horrible wheels. And now I'll get rid of the chrome on it with a little bit of caustic soda and some hot water. There it goes. After a few seconds, most of that chrome paint's gone. And here it is after a good rinse. And I gave this a nice coat of black paint. And then I detailed those pipes on the side, but I actually forgot to take a little bit of footage of that. The windscreen now. There's no cracks in it, that's great. It's just a bit scuffed. So I start out with some 1200 grit sandpaper. And then I move on to some 2000 grit. And then I give it a polish. I'm trying some new plastic polish this time. And it's finished with a dip in the self-shining floor polish. And finally the wheels. There's those horrible old Hot Wheels wheels. I'm going to be replacing them with these aftermarket ones here. These wheels have unpainted rims, so I pop the tyres off and then hit them with some black primer, followed by some Vallejo metal colour silver. And then I can pop the tyres back on and they're ready to go. Here are all the parts of our Hot Wheels Shelby Daytona Cobra Coupe, refurbished, repainted and ready to go back together. I drilled and tapped the rivet posts on this earlier, so it was just a matter of plonking the parts back together and screwing the screws up. But just before we take a look at the finished car, let's take a look back and be reminded of what we started with. Heavily paint chipped, scruffy wheels and scuffed windows. It's definitely no state for one of America's most iconic race cars to be in. So let's see if we can tidy it up a bit. And here it is, our finished, restored and customized Hot Wheels Shelby Cobra Daytona Coupe. I think it's looking much better with that scruffy red paint job gone and repainted in a more original looking metallic blue with the white pinstripes. It's been detailed, it's got some nice aftermarket wheels, and I think where I've lowered those rear arches looks a bit better. If I'd left them like they were, there would have been big gaps above the wheels there. It really is an awesome looking car. I don't think Hot Wheels have captured it quite right with the front windscreen there. They've made it look a little bit too sharp, I think, kind of cartoony. The original car seems a bit rounder and softer lines. I think the other version actually looks a bit closer to the original. They still captured it pretty well. You can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Quite an interesting story about this car and the World Championships and the battle with Ferrari. There's some good videos covering it on YouTube, so I recommend checking those out if you're interested. I'll now say a big thanks to everyone for all the great comments and likes on my videos. Extra special thanks to my Patreon supporters who help to support the channel through Patreon. If you'd like to help out as well, you can check out my Patreon page. There's a link in the description below, as well as a link where you can get 10% off Starbond Superglue. As always, thanks heaps for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and you'd like to see more like it, remember to subscribe and click the bell, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends.